This week on TGC News, an awesome new shotgun slug, a drop-in AK trigger, and Kimber confuses everyone by releasing a revolver? RE Factor Tactical now offers some of the most useful targets around. Whether it's the IQ, the kill zone, or the essentials target, you won't be short on drills to run at the range. To get 10% off your entire order, click the RE Factor link in the description and use the code TGC10. Welcome back. My name is Jon Patton and TGC News is back. It's been a couple weeks and there is a ton to catch up on, but before we get into the guts of the show, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone that I ran into at SHOT that showed their support for TGC. The love was freaking overwhelming and I walked out of there on cloud nine. You guys are awesome. There's no other way to say it. The other thing that I need to share with you guys is that there is finally some TGC swag available. You guys have been asking for it and it's here. If you want to grab a limited edition patch in gray and white, as well as a couple badass TGC logo stickers, send $12.50 to theguncollective@gmail.com. And one last thing, I want to meet you guys. I want to meet everybody out there that's watching. I'm going to be at the Great American Outdoor Show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania on February 13th at the Rockwell Tactical booth. So if you're in the area, you should definitely come out and say hey. Now, let's get into the news, shall we? Oath Ammo has released one of the coolest shotgun rounds I've seen in a long time. Although I put them in the Me Too bin next to a few other companies that copy my friends at Lehigh Defense, this is something that I've been asking Lehigh to do for a while now, and Oath beat him to it. What am I talking about? An all-copper expanding shotgun slug. Jesus, would you just look at this thing? The all-copper version weighs in at 1 1/4 ounces and leaves the bore at about 1,600 feet per second. That's pretty standard for slugs, but normal slugs don't open to the size of Nebraska. They've also gone a little farther and created a fragmenting version out of brass where presumably the 2 1/4 ounce slug moving at about 1,200 feet per second comes apart into big chunks when it enters the target and dumps a ton of energy. One of the more interesting things reported by Oleg Volk over at alloutdoor.com is that they're going to be offering standard 2 3/4 inch slugs as well as a shorter 2-inch version for guns that will reliably feed shorter rounds. Imagine a KSG filled with these things. Oh my God, that's going to be awesome. They also claim that their unique design with the round kind of protruding from the brass shell will aid in feeding in box-fed guns like Segas or Actals and things like that. I find that kind of curious because my understanding was that the rounds that were not typically reliable were the light-loaded birdshot rounds, not slugs. At the same time, though, I'm not really a box magazine-fed shotgun expert. Let's also talk about cost here. Although these are not available for purchase just yet, I can almost guarantee that they are going to be frickin' expensive. Just ridiculous. The all-brass casings are not cheap to manufacture, let alone the cost to make the projectiles. Normal hunting slugs can cost over $3 a round, and they're made with jacketed lead. Add the machining involved here on these, and I suspect we're going to see rounds costing over $5 each. They're actually supposed to be listed on the Oath website any day now, so I guess we'll see what truths are revealed. What do you guys think? Would you rock these for hunting or maybe even home defense? Let me know down in the comments. And in the AK market getting stronger news, CMC triggers, not to be confused with 90s sensation CNC Music Factory, CMC just announced a new drop-in AK trigger. You heard me correctly, a drop-in AK trigger. One of the most difficult things to make aftermarket triggers for is the AK. Why? Well, because there are so many variants out there and every country that ever made a variant says, "Niet, our rifle is better." That was a terrible accent. This led to slightly different pin placement in the fire control group, and that makes things interesting when you need to have precise alignment for functionality in the trigger. With an AR-15, there are standards, and the trigger pins are supposed to be in the same place every time. That's not really the case with AKs. It appears as though CMC is getting around this by essentially creating their own internal chassis that the trigger sits in, but beyond that, I have not really been able to find any more information on what exactly they're doing to accomplish this kind of across-the-board functionality. The next question you're going to ask is going to be, Is it any good? Although I wasn't able to get my hands on it at Shot Media Day, I spoke with my good friend Whitey from 4Guys Guns, who was able to put some rounds on it, and he said, quote, "The CMC AK 3.5 pound flat trigger is infinitely better than its AR cousin." That says a lot because a lot of people really like that CMC flat blade. He also went on to say that it felt like cheating and he was able to be super fast with it. And now I suppose the next question you're going to ask is, how does it compare to other AK triggers out there? Well, because it's so new, at this point it's going to be hard to say how it stacks up, but I'd be willing to bet that it'll go toe-to-toe with some of the best the AK world has to offer. And that says a lot about the way that market is growing. It seems as though the companies known for creating outstanding AR triggers are doing just that for AKs. Leave me a comment below if you guys want to see me try out one of these CMC AK triggers. In case you were wondering if Kimber had any idea what people wanted in the gun world, they've proven that they have no f***ing clue with this. The new Kimber K6S 6-shot 357 Magnum revolver. I mean, don't get me wrong here. I'm sure this gun is nice, but it's 2016, and instead of making their other guns something more than overpriced, I've got more money than sense displays, they made a revolver. Granted, they did put some nice sights on it, and the fit and finish appears decent, but is that enough to make people want this gun? The kicker here is that they're going up against Ruger and Smith & Wesson in that realm, and both of those companies already have really strong offerings with the SP101 and guns like the 649, with MSRPs of $719 and $729 respectively, where the Kimber has an MSRP of $899. Listen, Kimber, I get it. You want to maintain a high-end clientele and pretend like your 1911s don't rust. But let's be serious. You went after a market of 65-year-olds and people that refuse to buy semi-automatics. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this will be a raging success. But I'm not paying anywhere close to $900 for that. Plain and simple. This week's Friendly Fire question is from John Coleman on the TGC Facebook page, and he asks, what's with all these companies rehashing the Glock 19 and calling it their own? John, that's a great question. I think the answer to this lies in the evolution of the firearms industry. As more and more companies offer modifications for one of the most popular guns in the world, there are bound to be guys that say, you know what, let's offer it as an entire package, but with our own twist on it. And I know looking at the prices, it's not always easy to see the value in those guns, but the companies that get the perceived value and price ratio correct will succeed and grow, and the others will not. I hope that helps, brother. My friendly fire question to you guys this week, what was your favorite thing from SHOT Show? There was tons of things that we covered here on TGC, as well as a bunch of stuff that was covered elsewhere. What did you guys like? Leave me a comment below. And if you want your question answered right here on the show, you can post that on facebook.com/theguncollective or post it on Instagram and Twitter using hashtag friendlyfire. And on hashtag not a review, the segment where I take a product and give you guys a hands-on spotlight, we're taking a closer look at the SRD 762 Ti QD, or as I like to call it, the alphabet soup from Sig Sauer. In all seriousness, when this can came out, there was a lot of skepticism. People were unsure about Sig making cans, but Sig picked up some giants in the suppressor industry and came out with some really interesting products. The first thing you're going to notice about this thing is that it's pretty ugly and it looks like an old school bomb. The taper at the back end is actually part of the blast chamber, because on this thing, what you see is what you get. There is no outer sleeve, so there's more internal volume for suppression. It's actually one of the most simplistic designs I've seen on a modern rifle can. You'll also notice that it ships with one of these dinky little micro brakes, which in my eyes is really just an attachment point for the gun and nothing more. I wouldn't really rely on it being an effective brake by itself, but once you get the can on there, that problem no longer matters. And being rated up to 300 Win Mag, you know I had to throw it on the Petra from Falcor Defense to test this thing out. I was pleasantly surprised that even the huge amount of gas from the Win Mag didn't have me crying when mounted on the Petra, and the overall tone of the can was really solid as well. It definitely didn't hurt my ears. You know, sometimes rifle cans are very sharp in tone, and that sucks. Next up, I threw it on my Lancer L30 Heavy Metal to see how it sounded on a 308. And even though I had the gas setting incorrect, the can did fairly well here as well. being that it's made out of titanium, it didn't upset the balance of the gun even though it was hanging out on the end of an 18-inch barrel. And finally, I installed it on my Remington Micro 7 in 300 Blackout. The huge internal volume of this can mixed with the low gas volume of the Blackout made it a joy to shoot. And again, the balance was not upset. The Micro 7 is a small, lightweight rifle, so I was weary of whether or not I'd be okay with the can on the end of the 16-inch barrel, and that titanium really showed its lack of weight in this setup. I mentioned tone earlier because I find that tone has more impact on my suppressed shooting experience than pure decibel ratings. The SIG SRD 762 Ti QD is lightweight, it's got good tone, and comes in at under $1,000. That's solid value for a high-quality rifle can. If you guys are looking to pick one of these up, I always recommend checking out silencershop.com for some of the best pricing and customer service around. The scarging handle from Kinetic Development Group offers an ergonomic way to manipulate your FN SCAR rifle. Able to be used on both sides of the gun as well as flipped upside down for a different angle of approach, this textured contoured handle is brand new from KDG. To get 10% off your entire order on kineticdg.com, use the code TGC10. And that is it for this week's show. Guys, do not forget to submit your pictures for the end of days January photo contest. The winner is going to be announced next week. And guys, you know what to do if you enjoyed the episode. If you didn't, let me know down in the comments so we can talk about it. Do not forget to subscribe. You won't want to miss a single week of the show. And as always, thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon.
The shirts worn in today's episode of TGC News were provided by Barrent Apparel. Click the link in the description to learn more.